Everyone, it's Mercedes, your host, with another episode of wakesetGO, where we're all about charging up the CEO in you. Today, we are going to spend some time chatting about all things graphic design, design when it comes to AI, as well as just some things that you have to make sure you're doing as a company or as a solo entrepreneur when it comes to branding, as well as putting yourself out there. And today I am not doing a solo episode. I am joined with Robert Price, who is a fellow entrepreneur in the design space. And I'm going to let him introduce himself and just tell us a little bit more details about how he got into design, as well as what he does and a little bit more about his business. So join me in welcoming Robert to the show.
I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. This is a little bit of a new format. I haven't done podcasts before, so I'm learning something here today as well, and I'm looking forward to it. My name is Robert Price. I have been working in design capacity, in advertising and design firms throughout my career for just over 30 years now. I got a real early start in college. My professor, he had a small design shop, and he let me come in there and start working my freshman year. So I kind of got a jump on things way back when. But mostly my primary focus that I do is branding. I work with companies and products to help establish the verbal and visual aspects of their brands. I work very closely with them to find those unique attributes that can be exploited to elevate them amongst their competitors. That's what I do the most, and that's what I like. I also do a lot of advertising. I develop advertising campaigns, as well as anything to support marketing efforts. If I can't do it, I know people who do. I manage those people, create all the fulfillment for any campaign.
Wow. So it pretty much sounds like you're a one-stop shop when it comes to all things design. And me being in marketing, I know how important it is to have design and how hard it is to find good designers and teams to work with. And I know when we were discussing early on about your company, you created RP74 Creative firm. So how or what led you to want to start your own creative firm to be able to like work with these companies, and how did you kind of know that, okay, I'm designing and I'm getting contracts? What kind of led you into starting it and coming up with a name for it and everything?
Yeah, this is my second endeavor doing this. My wife and I, early on in the dot-com boom, when that all exploded in, what was that, 2001, 2002, we had we decided to move and relocate from San Francisco. We moved out to Portland, and there wasn't a lot of opportunities, so I was kind of like forced to kind of go out on my own and try. And we did okay for about a year and a half, but ultimately we had to shut it down. So there was always that. I liked that, but there was never good economics at that time. Nor was there, LinkedIn didn't exist at that time, and making connections back then was very hard. It required lots of footwork, and people already had a lot of established relationships. So basically, after that, I just went back to working in various design firms and ad agencies for that period of time. And the last 10 years, I've been here in Tyler, Texas, working at an agency. And probably around 2019, I had realized that on a particular client that I was working on, I had helped them manage and evolve their brand for over 8 years, and I had quite a portfolio to show. This was something I considered quite an accomplishment, something along the lines of, it's not a fancy company that my client was, but for 8 years, I've carefully managed it and helped it grow and evolve, and we've achieved a lot of things. And I felt like I achieved kind of a goal there. But I stayed at the firm, and one of the driving factors was I felt like if I stayed in this firm where I could be safe, I could be fine, I probably could be there for another 10 years and get real close to retirement. But there's so much change that's coming in the next, it's already happening, AI, all of that. It's happening now, but there's going to be such radical change and new software and new technology that it wasn't necessarily something that needed to be incorporated in where I was working. And I felt like we weren't going to adapt, and I needed to adapt, and I needed to learn new things. And I'm learning new things. So I'm learning Riverside today. And all these things are great. They're excellent communication tools for creating a service-based company and working out of the home. That was another aspect. I wanted to be at home and remote. And uh, my commute wasn't like very big, but I just didn't want to drive anymore. So it's really nice with the tools and the things that we have today.
I definitely agree. It always seemed, even the reason why I like doing like virtual interviews now is because, okay, I don't have to go to Texas or be in Texas anymore that I was just there to do an interview. Though I do
Yes.
appreciate people that have podcasts and they're in the studio and they invite you out and then you're coming and you're doing something in person. But I pretty much streamline everything to be digital to where if we can do it and I'm at home and I'm in, whatever location I want to be in, you're in whatever location you want to be in, there's no reason why we can't make it happen. And that
Yeah.
goes for, podcasts, television, and the new wave of content creation, because a lot of content creators, they're showing that, okay, I can do a commercial on my iPhone and having those creative elements where you're doing video or you're doing design. And I see so many avenues along with the .com boom you mentioned. So even now there's websites like you don't have to have a .com anymore. You don't have to necessarily code a website. It can pretty much
Yes.
be made for you. And I've even used some tools on some of my AI systems where I'll just say, hey, design me an image, and AI just straight up design an image. Though there are some imperfections to there's nothing like working with a designer and actually having a human touch, which I think is really gonna help, benefit in the future, because people think that, okay, I can DIY it or do it for myself, but there's a lot of benefits in having a team and people that specialize in it work for you. So what are some of the common mistakes you feel like you notice with a lot of business owners that are trying to start out? Because what I
Mm,
see just from consulting, that a lot of businesses or solopreneurs or people out there that want to start something, they get so caught up in the design and what the logo looks like before actually putting out the product. Like they're wanting to perfect the design so much. I always feel like design is something that you can always work on, change, come back to,
yeah.
implement. And you have to think about acquisitions too. Like, what if you get acquired and now that time and effort you spend into that design, and now, you're doing something else. But there is also brand equity in design. So I can appreciate that factor of using the same logo and having that consistency. So what is something that you feel like business owners should focus on, like when it comes to starting out?
Well, and that's a really great question. From an owner, from a designer standpoint, I can blow the business up really quickly. Like I can have a vision for it. I can see how it's going to expand, it's going to grow. But the real truth of the matter is you need to have a place where you're going to start, and it's got to be viable, and it's got to make money. I think sometimes, and I've been guilty of this myself, it's like you build it and they'll come, and that's not true. And I think the really important part is making sure that you have a legitimate business strategy, something that you actually can execute and something that somebody else wants viability wise. One of the things I've always told customers, and we don't always focus on verbal branding, to be honest with you, it's hard. Verbal branding takes a lot more work than the visual identity. That's the easy part in a certain way. But any person always has the ability to talk. And if you can develop your verbal brand, regardless of what materials you have, you may not even have a business card, but if you can talk about your company in a way that's passionate and differentiated, you can sell that company. A lot of the times, though, people will use design or the process of design when starting a new company as a way to build excitement. I've seen it used as a tool for distraction. Like, I don't need to think about how the engine works in the car. I just want to know what color the paint's going to be on the car, you know? So, as somebody who starts a business, I think it's really important to just really focus on the business strategy functions and not so much the brand. I would say 20 years ago, you really needed to have a visual identity that was ready to go out of the box. Today, I think you can evolve that brand quickly with tools and things as your company ramps up. And today, you're not going to be punished so much for not having a perfect looking brand right out of the gate.
And
I think there's some points within your company's visual identity, the brand, and how it's presented. There's sometimes when it needs to be formal, and there's sometimes when it needs to just be loose and authentic. And I think you see that more on the social media aspects. And I think from a cultural standpoint, if you were to see a TV commercial or a printed ad or something like that, I think there is an expectation that those things need to be perfect. Um, Even, they cost a lot more money. But in certain realms of kind of the social communications and aspects of that, you don't have to be perfect. The other place I will say this is I've been contemplating how I'm going to do it, but I do want people to know the technology is out there for you to be empowered to take control and kind of ramp up your brand. You don't have to have a design firm right now. So, like, you can go to Canva, you can go to Squarespace to do a website, or one of hundreds of places to do stuff. And um, the biggest problem is running into templates. And as long as you know somewhere down the line, you really need to spend some money and invest in trying to come up with a unique look and brand for your company. At some point, you need to do that. Otherwise, you're going to look like everybody else. And in fact, I just saw an interesting post on LinkedIn the other day of a person talking about how on Canva, they have a special legal section that talks about how you could go to Canva, use one of their logo templates, and have a logo made, and you create it, but you would not be able to trademark that logo
oh,
because it's close
wow.
enough that somebody else could just put their name under there, especially if you're not modifying anything, just name
Right.
icons the same. You would not be able to trademark that. Now, I think somebody could kind of fool the USPTO, the Patent and Trademark
Hmm.
Office, but
Hmm.
technically they are right from a legal standpoint. So, like, if you went and sued somebody else for using that logo, you wouldn't have a leg to stand on. So it's really interesting. There's a lot of templates out there, a lot of different things. So everybody will be structured and look kind of the same. And, at some point it's kind of like you grow up, you become a teenager, you need to start finding your identity system and who you're going to be. And then when you go out in the world, you're kind of that brand. So once your company gets to that standpoint, you should reach out to somebody who can help work with you to find what really authentically makes your company look different. Because I mean, the business strategies are all the same. It really comes down to the differentiation of how you talk about that business strategy and what it visually looks like, and maintaining that consistency through everything that you do.
Right.
So,
And that's the importance of kind of like owning that design and having the rights to it, because then you can vectorize it how you want to and then also evolve it as you grow. Because what I've noticed with a lot of the Fortune 100 companies is that maybe in previous designs they used a lot of color. Like I'm noticing a trend where a lot of companies, they're simplifying their logos and they're not using as much
Yeah.
color anymore. And it almost looks like there's this dark age of design. I'm not sure like what's going on, even with, the use of not even just design from a digital standpoint and logos, but from the architecture. I'm noticing like a lot of new buildings, they're taking away I guess the life that would make great architecture unique, the
Yeah.
details, like they're just making it very like gray and they call it modern. Even like with houses, like you're seeing very clean, very simple, very modern looking designs. So what do you feel about that change, or do you feel like that's something that's just going to be here to stay, or is it just a trend, or what do you think about that?
Well, it's all very interesting. I mean, I'll take the Johnson and Johnson logo uh, fiasco that occurred this last year, and I think it's kind of interesting culturally. Somebody made the argument. I don't know if that's really the reason why they did it. I know they were having some internal bad PR issues going on. I think you'll see a lot of companies change their brand and evolve it to kind of reset and start something new. But they were talking about, well, the younger generation wasn't taught cursive, so they don't know how to read cursive. And I'm like, well, it's not a terrible like crazy cursive scratch, but I think the simplification of where they went with that was kind of weird in that it used to be, going back to the 50s where things were cut out of film and things were pasted together and then a photo was taken of it and then that was sent to a plate. Things were really simple then. So the idea that we have more flexibility in mediums today, printing, like very rarely are you going to see the need for Pantone printing where you have very specific color. You can do offset printing in anything today and it's very affordable. Or there's TV and our resolutions are so high on these devices now. I don't understand the simplification myself. Now, I appreciate simplification, but to your point, you're losing an opportunity for some texture, some characteristic. I'm not, I don't think we should go back to kind of that Apple 3D look that was, when the iPhone came out and everybody was kind of making more like realistic buttons and things like that. But it does feel like right now there's a trend to throw things away. And I think it's a great opportunity for people right now to exploit that because I think you can bring a lot of richness and visual into a brand right now where simplification sometimes can get to a point where there's nothing there. There's just nothing unique. I like what you said, dark age. Kind of
Yeah, I mean,
a
yeah, because
strange
sometimes I fall
period.
into that. Yeah, yeah, where I just want to be simplified too and simple and just easy to remember. I find myself liking a lot of the simple designs, keeping it clean because you want to be memorable. You want to stand out. And you also want to have something that's unique to you, whether that's a color that you're associated with. And that could be something bright. And I think last year when you had the Oppenheimer, the Barbieheimer, or the Oppenheimer group, it's all the dark, the bomb related
Mm,
color scheme, which fit that brand because it was more so dark related. So anybody wearing black or those kind of colors, you knew that, okay, they're with the Oppenheimer moviegoers. And then with Barbie, everybody that's wearing pink. And if Barbie didn't have that kind of uniqueness or color, how would you know that that's Barbie? If Barbie wanted to,
yeah,
change, like I think that's a uniqueness that I can appreciate is that, okay, Barbie is now so big that you even look at a color and you think, okay, that's Barbie. And I think that's the
yeah,
power of branding and that opportunity that if a new company were to come out, they still can have that recognition. And Twitter, I mean, the bird, the blue, powder blue, that was a big brand recognition. And now it's just X. It's just dark. It's just black.
Yeah.
It's just X. So, I mean, that's a
That's
brand in
that's what
itself. Yeah.
yeah, that one's a whole issue in itself.
Right.
I'm interested in I like where he's going to go with X, and I think it might be temporary is what I'm hoping, but we'll see.
Yeah. And I mean, even just looking at Tesla's logo and how, okay, it does kind of meet that need of being simplified. But if I were to see it out somewhere, because you see it on the cars, you see it on different types of products, it becomes locked in your memory bank. And so I think having a logo, having something that you own, that you can put somewhere, regardless if you're collaborating with someone that you pretty much have made it when someone looks at your logo and they're like, okay, that's what this product is. If I look at it, it's going to make me think of this. And that goes back to the business strategy of,
Yeah,
okay, if we're selling cars and I look at the logo, it makes me think that, okay, I know you guys sell cars and I don't have to be puzzled about what it is that you do, because that marketing and branding kind of goes hand in hand as far as putting it out there and also
yeah,
addressing that need and problem solving, which I know that a lot of times with the trends happening or some of the changes that are happening because of everything becoming digital, becoming easy, like you don't have to wait anymore. You can just immediately create something, put it out there. What do you feel like is something you're looking forward to with some of those changes, and what do you feel like you're doing now to prepare as a designer, like for some of those changes like that are happening, or that you're noticing those trends, like what are you doing to equip yourself?
well, the first thing one of the first things I did was I reached out to this fellow designer that I have great admiration for, and he had already been experimenting in AI and things of that nature. And I was like, man, I gotta talk to you. We gotta go to lunch. Because, like, as far as I'm concerned, AI is gonna destroy everything. And I think the changes with AI are gonna come way too fast, faster than the human experience, the human mind can handle. It organize and manage and deal with the problems that will arise. I especially don't see any ability within the legal aspects of them trying to figure out usage and moderation and things of that nature. It's going to be a wild west. And I was really like negative about it. And so we went to lunch and we talked. And he's like, Robert, today um, there's bad design. And, it's going to come down to, you know, if you look around, we have all sorts of designers today, and there's lots of bad design stuff. He's like, even with AI, there's still going to be bad design stuff. And so there will be people who want to have people who can control it and utilize it in a way that's beneficial. I do think it's going to have massive impact. I've been using it. I've used it on some projects. I've created some what I would
You got a
call
double
copy.
arm created? Like, because I know when I've designed some stuff using it, it'll like make a double arm or a double
Oh
finger or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
Like you get an extra finger. So that's the
yeah,
imperfections that I've noticed. But it is amazing some of the videos that it can produce. So I can see a lot of actors, or even just when it comes to media, I
yeah,
think, yeah, people can start using it and not know what's real and what's AI either, which is scary.
yeah. I think from a certain standpoint, it will be a visual tool that will allow you to see a variety of options. If you're a videographer and you've got to storyboard something out, I think you'll get to the point where you could literally kind of have a video ready to go to see if it looks good. And oh, maybe I don't like how that's framed, and I don't like how these two people are interacting. Um, let's try it from this angle, right? So by the time you actually go to film it, you will have saved a lot of money not spending a lot of exploration time on set where it's really expensive to explore things. But at the same time, I think probably in the next 5 years, if you are a motivated individual with AI, you will be able to take aspects of pop culture. And my example is Star Wars. So, like,
Mm,
you could literally go back, use AI video technology. You could make your own Star Wars and fix it the way that you want it to be. You could make that lightsaber scene with Obi-Wan and Darth Vader move much faster than it does in the original. And you could fix plot points, or you could explore other versions, and you could change how characters look. And I think the, it's a weird idea to think that we could be watching people's versions of movies in 5 or 10 years. I definitely think we're going to see commercials here real quick. The video aspects are moving very fast. To your point, there's still a lot of flaws. I've had finger issues. I haven't dipped my toe too far in, but I'm in mid-journey. One of the things that I did to speed up a project that I was working on brand development, is I needed to find some stock photography, but looking through
mm,
hundreds and hundreds of pieces of stock photography, and you're looking for that thing that you want,
right.
is really hard. I was able to type in, I need a sewage plant from a bird's eye view with trucks and vehicles and all of this stuff surrounded by trees. Kicked it out in less than 2 minutes, and it was perfect. And it was great. And I could
Wow.
just drop it in there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't meant to be something I would use as finished artwork, but I could use it for comping issues when I can't find a piece of stock photography that kind of works best. Because I think a lot of clients today don't want to necessarily see, they want to see more accurate imagery use when presenting a
Right.
concept, and less, you know, because especially they get really focused. We sometimes, I don't know if you've heard of it or if other people use the term, but comp envy. So once they see a photo and you've told them, like, this is just here kind of for placement, they get used to it. And they're like, no, I really want a photo like that. It's like, oh, I just meant to put that in there
Yeah.
just to show you what something might look like. So I'm using it in when I can't find a piece of stock photography that will work. And I've messed around with some examples. They're in my feed on LinkedIn. I did a Jimi Hendrix getting a coffee the next morning after Woodstock.
That's
It did
cool.
pretty good, but like you said, there's some weird finger things happening. I don't know what that's about,
Right.
but
Right.
it's amazing. It's amazing because you can see some crazy stuff, but also, just the different software
Saves
is
time.
changing so fast. Yeah, it saves time, and
Yes. Yeah.
there's so much new software. So just trying to keep up with it, figuring out what you can incorporate and works with you. That's really good. There's a lot of flexibility there. So I'm really in the mix of that right now, just trying to learn new things, as I said, because you know the days of having one skill set or understanding one aspect of a job with its software, and having a career that you can ride out to retirement. I mean, honestly, that kind of ended probably around 2000, but today your career is going to change. You're going to have so many different jobs, and I think technology now is just going to kill jobs, but it will create new jobs too. And you're going to have to adapt to those jobs. Otherwise, you know, you're going to kind of fall back. It's honestly, it's pretty scary, but it's also
Well, no, not
exciting.
really, because because I'm thinking about it from like a content creation standpoint, because I know I have spoke about briefly about AI and how it can help, because if you're just having writer's block or you're trying to come up with something, it can help you to figure out like, okay, this is a good idea or concept. I can add to it. And it just frees up your brain at the same time to be able to save time and create more stuff and things that you
Yeah.
hadn't really thought about either. So I just see it from that that benefit standpoint. So I really don't think we have anything to worry about. But at the same time, it's all about, like you said, how you can make it work for you and adapt as well, because you
Yeah.
can showcase yourself as being that expert or use it to your advantage for what you're creating for clients to maximize your output too, and what you
Yeah.
can push out or, have what they're interested in. So what do you think is, as far as, thinking about the future, like currently, like your way of getting clients
Mhm.
versus like back then, like how do you feel like you've been most successful with retaining or getting clients or referrals? Like what
Yeah.
platforms are you currently using? Like what do you feel is the best way to kind of get business as a designer?
I am a big fan of LinkedIn. Now, I'm not going to say I'm using it as effectively as I want. I'm continually evolving and doing that. I got on LinkedIn back in 2007, and I had some opportunities to do some freelance work. One particular day, I I emailed a guy just introducing myself. He called me like about 5 minutes after he got my thing. He said, "Hey, can you help me out with a logo project?" I'm like, "Absolutely." That was really cool. So LinkedIn for me is a tool that I understand, and I think it has great power. I'm on the premium level, which is kind of a sales tool level, allows me to see more people, do more things, get interacted. One of the things that I'm heavily doing right now is just I'm specifically looking for marketing directors, as I met with you, and sent out within kind of a 2 mile radius. I'm kind of going by bigger cities right now and keep moving around, making connections. And then I send out material and things to them after I've sent things to them. And then I'm not going to flood them, but I will follow up with them over time. But I've kept a very tight list of people. So I currently right now I've done work since leaving my job. I've done work with people hadn't talked to in 10 years because I had reached back out to them and let them know I'm back out on my own. And they've referred me to other people and clients. So
So following
maintaining
up
that,
would be important, like maintaining the relationship, following up is
yeah,
a good
yeah,
technique.
absolutely. And people were absolutely happy to talk with me, find out what's going on, and and refer me or if they had projects. So I really like the LinkedIn aspect. It allows for conversation if conversation does need to occur. And then, you know, if I need to talk to somebody who's remote, I'll just use Zoom. And but if anybody's within a half a day's drive, I'll drive to do the brand discovery. It's so important just to meet people and help build that relationship. But that's a little harder if you're going to work with somebody in Seattle. But um,
It's
LinkedIn
not
is the
impossible.
tool that I
Yeah.
like. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, I love LinkedIn. I think it's a great tool when it comes to, especially when you're trying to get connected with people in a corporate space or people that have that experience or connections, because there's so many companies that have the opportunity and the budget to actually spend on design and other efforts that sometimes is hard when you're working with someone that we mentioned earlier when we were discussing about someone that may be a solopreneur or just starting out, or someone that may be better fit to use the Canva or the do-it-yourself before signing up with a big creative agency or creative team. And that
yeah,
also helps the burnout of the relationship of all parties when it's reciprocal and you're all on the same page of what you're going to deliver and what they also want, because I'm sure when it comes to a full creative or design suite, especially from some of the stuff that I've seen you do, like from brochures or just kind of those different template items, those are for people that really want to get, and even though if they're not printing it, but still having that for potential clients or or downloadables or, trade
Yeah.
shows, things like that. So I could see where that aligns a little bit better for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it that you do to kind of like stay productive, even though we mentioned about using AI to kind of help when you have that brain fog where you're like, okay, I need some ideas or I need some inspiration. What other things do you do that you feel like contribute to your success as a designer or kind of getting you in that design mode when you feel like, okay, I need to do this every morning or every day. I need to make sure I'm finding time to do this to get my creative boost. Like, what are some things that you do to be the most productive?
Yeah. I think it's always good to have an idea of what you're going to do when you don't have clients. So, like my wife was talking to me last night. I need to be doing a little bit more content development on LinkedIn right now, but I've been busy kind of the last month and a half on several projects and things, and it's kind of picking up again here. So, but if I don't have work, I'm on LinkedIn. One, I'm making connections. I want to make connections. That's my motivation. That's how I'm going to get work. I want to follow up and make sure people know who I am. I need to be developing posts and providing useful information that is helpful, that's free for people to connect with. So that's like my base.
It could be anything that
Okay.
you feel like gets you in that right
Yeah.
mindset to be able to create. Yeah.
I've always had some illustrative abilities, so that was kind of how I got started in this business. And I play music and guitars and stuff, so I play a lot. Just it's nice to have a different creative outlet, and just getting out and going for a walk and clearing the mind is really important. So I like to do a lot of that.
Yeah, no, having another creative outlet as a creative is good because I know sometimes I find myself going back into another one of my passions was art and actually painting. And so whenever I'm thinking about helping a client or thinking about campaigns or thinking about marketing, I always feel like, okay, if I'm like painting or creating something or even just writing something, it can fire something else up. Or if during
Yeah,
those downtimes you're doing stuff you like you don't really feel like you're all just business and work is on all the time. Like you actually have that
yeah,
balance. And I notice that when people feel that, like, and they feel good about themselves, they feel good about what they're doing, it makes everything else just kind of start flowing and firing up for sure.
yeah. The stepping away is more times than not. That's when some idea pops into my head when I'm not trying to force it and I'm doing
Hmm.
something else.
Yeah. And so, what is it that you think for our listeners out there that may be doing something in the creative space or industry from design, or if they're just kind of designing on the side? What tips do you have for them to be able to know that, okay, look, you're already, the wake set part is, you designing or doodling on the side or maybe doing some AI research? What is it that could fire them up more to maybe just go for it? Or what is something that they could do now if they don't have any clients or they're not necessarily able to put their design work out there? What advice do you have for them that they can start implementing to give them that confidence boost to just be like, all right, I'm going to launch it?
Yeah, I think it's important to know, and this has always been a problem with me as well. You gotta just go. And nothing today has to be perfect. It can be perfect tomorrow, or it can be then. Because if you're hung up too much on perfect, you're going to miss an opportunity. And I think you can miss an opportunity in a fast paced society that we work in today. So I think the biggest thing is to move fast and just get out there and see if it's going to work. That way you can actually change course, or you'll know immediately, okay, this is working. What's the next step? You know, maybe you're not an LLC yet. You're still just a proprietor or something. Just go. You'll figure it out, and somewhere, somebody you'll bump into and they'll give you some advice and just say, oh, you should probably take care of this at this point right now, like go ahead and figure out, like separate yourself from your company so that if there's a legal issue, it doesn't affect your personal life or something like that. These issues are going to be there, you'll figure them out. But I think the important part is just stay true to whatever it is that you're going to do, the what inspired you, stay as close to that. Why did this spark occur? you know what it Put it on the wall. uh, think about it, every morning when you get up. Look for somebody else that's doing exactly what you're doing, and be inspired by that. But I think the most important part is just don't wait, move forward. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. It'll get better and better as you move along.
Oh yeah, I love seeing different businesses and people that I know that are just sharing how far they've come. And I really admire some people I know that are, and it can go for any industry, chefs or bakers, like when they first started out, their stuff just looks just awful looking back at it. But just the fact that they had the
Right.
courage and they just put it out there, and then time goes on and they're still doing it, they're consistent, they learned better techniques, new techniques. And that's just with anything. It's like even, starting out with websites or with marketing, you just get better. You learn how to, figure out a new software. You learn as a chef or a baker better ways to make your presentation look better. And then having those opportunities come up, even if it's not perfect, but the fact that you put it out there and you have that experience, or you basically did it. And that's the hardest part, I think, for most people, is just
Mhm.
starting it, putting it out there, and actually being proud of it, even if it's not the best, quote unquote. But then later on, you're so consistent, you become named up there with the best. And as long as, like you said, stay true to yourself and you're enjoying the process, because it is a journey, and the journey may lead you to other things that you're doing. Like you may start out baking, or may start out doing something else. And then next thing you know, you're able to be this creative director, or, different ways, or, that your gifts can be pushed out there too, as long as you're
Yeah.
continuing to share it with the world and not be afraid to make those mistakes. I still see big companies making mistakes, where they're not perfect, even though they have the resources, and you would think
Yeah.
that they would be better. I don't know if you noticed those designs that, I think it's Fanatics. They make those baseball jerseys where they're see through and the material doesn't look like it's the best quality. But you would think,
Yeah.
this is $1 million company, and there are, mistakes like
Yeah.
this happening. But it's like you're afraid to put out your design and what you got going on. But there's other companies out there that are just getting the contracts, making the connections, having that confidence. So I think you said it best, that, hey, go for it. Wake, set, go for it. Whatever it is that you want to do, wake, set, go
Exactly.
for it, because it's gonna, end up coming back full circle, and you're gonna be happy that you did. So I definitely
Yeah.
appreciate you so much, Robert. Anything else you want to tell to our listeners, just put out there to the audience of wakesetGO? These are go-getters. You're in the community of other go-getters where, you're going
Yeah.
for it. Yeah. So
I think just adding one last thing to that, I think it, for me, because I've been around a lot longer, for younger people who are, trying to do something today, I think it's very important to understand that starting a business today has never been easier, and it's never been more affordable. So there were a lot of hurdles with certain types of companies that my wife and I wanted to do like 20 years ago, that it just wasn't there. There were, like, 3D printing wasn't there. And if I had to go overseas and have this product made, it I would have to have $50,000 in startup. As whereas today, you can buy a 3D printing machine for $500. You can buy a laser cutting machine for 500, better quality ones, $1,000. But there's so many businesses that you can start today for so little money. and it's amazing. So even if you crash and burn on one, if you have a certain amount of money and you've budgeted it and you're like, well, this isn't working, I'm going to go try something else. That's the great thing. You don't have to just crash and burn and you're all out of money, right? And you're like, crap, I got to go get an extra job or something, you know. It's a good time. It's just a really good time to take advantage of all of this. And I assume it's probably going to get a little bit easier. So,
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think what's going to make people stand out because it is getting easier. The barrier to entry is easy, but it's going to be, like you said before, like if it's 10 years from now, who's still going to be around innovating and still doing it? Because it's easy to start, but it's harder to finish. It's harder to wake up and decide that you're going to do it the next day when that motivation and inspiration leaves, like when you're no longer
mm,
enjoying doing it anymore, like what are you going to do? So I
yeah,
think that right
exactly.
there is, yeah, it's like just staying with it too. So yeah, no, definitely thank you so much for your time. I'm sure that this is gonna help resonate with someone out there that's trying to be an entrepreneur or is a designer or not in the design world, but maybe in another space that wants to start creating but doesn't know where to start or what to do. It's like, hey, we got the internet. You can research it. It's the information is already there. Somebody's
Yeah,
probably already done it and given a blueprint because when you're talking about 3D printers,
that's
I was
true.
thinking about libraries now. They actually have 3D printers in the libraries, and you can
I know, it's
just
crazy.
go there. Yeah, you don't even have to invest anything to just get started, even with just different prototypes. It's like you can just have the idea, have the vision, meet the right people, even if you don't meet the right people at first. I appreciate everyone for tuning in.